event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
On the celebration of the 8th of March, coinciding with the Women's International Day, the President of the Republic has hailed the pivotal role of the Algerian women in several fields and their significant contribution in sustainable development. In Cairo, the Minister of Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf said that Algeria will continue its efforts and actions and will make further attempts until the Security Council assumes its responsibilities towards the Palestinian people fully and unequivocally. The Council of the Arab League at the ministerial level meeting in Cairo for its 161st ordinary session has praised Algeria's efforts in favor of the just Palestinian cause since the start of its current term at the United Nations Security Council. And the Council of the League of Arab States has called on the UN Security Council to adopt without delay a binding resolution against the Zionist entity in order to put an end to its genocidal aggression that has been underway for 5 months now. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Zmani. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has hailed the pivotal role of the Algerian women in several fields and their significant contribution in sustainable development. In a message addressed on the celebration of Women's International Day, coinciding with the 8th of March, the President said the Algerian women were proud of their strong will and loyalty to their country. President Tebboune also said that equality is a constitutional principle that is protected. He called for being proud of our sisters and daughters who proved to be the heirs of Jamila Boubasha, Jamila Bouhired, and Jamila Bouazza. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has said in Cairo in his address to the 161st session of the Council of the Arab League at ministerial level that Algeria, on the firm instructions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, will continue its efforts and actions and will make further attempts until the Security Council assumes its responsibilities towards the Palestinian people fully and unequivocally.
On the firm instructions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria, which has made the Palestinian cause its main concern and the guiding principle of all its actions since it joined the Security Council, will continue its efforts and actions and will make further attempts until the Council assumes its responsibilities towards the Palestinian people fully and unambiguously.
Mr. Attaf said the current situation calls for an objective assessment of our response as a league to the distress calls of our Palestinian brothers and of our loyalty to our historic commitments to them at a time when they are suffering a new Nakba after the Great Nakba.
The Arab position must emphasize three fundamental constants and rules that cannot be ignored. Firstly, the only future for Gaza is the one determined by the Palestinians themselves. From this point of view, it is important to respect the independence of the Palestinian decision and the will and right of the Palestinian people. Secondly, the future of Gaza is not one that the occupier wants to shape as it pleases to serve its own interests. The future of Gaza is one that is shaped by international legality, accelerating the revival of the process of a comprehensive, just and definitive peace for the Arab-Israeli conflict that responds to the legitimate national demands of the Palestinian people. Thirdly, there is no future for Gaza other than within the framework of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state on the 1967 borders with Al-Quds as its capital.
With this in mind, the minister said that the first level of priorities require us as a league to take practical measures and intensify our collective efforts to stop the bloodshed and genocide and put an end to the multifaceted crimes committed by the occupier in the Gaza Strip. With regard to the second level of priorities, that the Arab community must relaunch without delay, Ahmed Attaf cited the need, indeed the imperative, to contribute effectively to breaking down the wall of immunity from which the occupier has always benefited, enjoying a special regime of advantages, privileges and exemptions from which no one else benefits. He said the third and final level of priorities is entirely linked to the need to strengthen the prospects for a political solution and to defeat and Zionist claims about the future of Gaza. He added that faced with Zionist theories on post-war Gaza, he said,
I call for the Arab position to evolve by making it bolder and more courageous so that it is equal to the immeasurable sacrifices and legendary resistance of our brothers in the Gaza Strip. It is also a question of the Arab position resuming its leading role in defending the central cause of our Arab Muslim nation in order to assert itself to the rest of the international community, which sees our position as a compass. There is also a need to consolidate the Arab position vis-à-vis the Zionist occupier at diplomatic, political and economic levels, as the African Union did at its last summit.
Mr. Attaf concluded the occupier must know that it has no veto to oppose the establishment of the Palestinian state, initiated 60 or 76 years ago by the United Nations. It must also understand that international legality protects the establishment of the state and that the international consensus to this effect remains in favor of the Palestinian national project. Mr. Ahmed Attaf has held bilateral meetings with the Secretary General of the League of Arab States, Ahmed Abul Ghaith, and a number of his Arab counterparts. As you followed in our top stories, the Council of the Arab League at ministerial level, meeting in Cairo for its 161st ordinary session, has praised Algeria's efforts in favor of the just Palestinian cause since the start of its current term at the United Nations Security Council. More in this report by Said Bougazi.
In the decision issued by the 161st Ordinary Session concerning the Palestinian cause, the Arab foreign ministers praised the efforts made by Algeria, which is following developments in the Palestinian cause at the UN Security Council, working to put an end to the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip and achieve a ceasefire, and supporting Palestine in its application for full membership of the United Nations. Earlier in the day, the 161st Ordinary Session of the Council of the Arab League at the level of Ministers of Foreign Affairs kicked off under the chairmanship of Mauritania and with the participation of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad Ahmed Attaf, entrusted by the President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboune. In addition to the political, security, economic, social and financial fields, the agenda of this session held in Cairo focuses on the Palestinian cause, notably the escalation of the genocidal war waged by the Zionist occupier against the Palestinian people in the besieged Gaza Strip and the West Bank, including El-Quds, for more than 5 months, resulting in more than 30,000 martyrs, 72,000 wounded, thousands missing, and 1.9 million displaced, more than 85% of the population of Gaza in difficult and catastrophic humanitarian conditions in an attempt to uproot these people from their land.
The Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Riyad al-Maliki, has hailed in Cairo Algeria's sustained efforts and its unceasing lobbying within the Security Council with a view to put an end to the ongoing Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip. In an address to the 161st session of the Council of the Arab League at ministerial level, Riyad al-Maliki expressed the appreciation of the State of Palestine for Algeria's leading role in monitoring developments in the Palestinian question at the Security Council. Let's listen to him.
Algeria's position deserves to be praised. It took this responsibility on behalf of all Arab countries at the Security Council. Since the first day, Algeria started with a clear vision to defend the Palestinian right and adopt this right at the Security Council. We have noticed that Algeria, from day one at the Security Council, took the lead on behalf of the Arab countries of this movement in favor of the Palestinian cause. I agree with my brother, the Foreign Minister, to meet soon to set up an Algerian-Palestinian complete strategy on the role of Algeria within the Security Council and how Algeria could push for the interests of the Palestinians at the United Nations and the Security Council in particular.
Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki has warned that the Zionist entity is waging a hunger war against the Palestinians in Gaza and is continuing to implement its plan to displace them, which could represent a serious harm to peace in the region. The head of Palestinian diplomacy told the Arab League meeting in Cairo that the Zionist regime was waging, in addition to the war of genocide and mass destruction, a new war, namely famine. He added that the Zionist regime is now preparing to implement its plans to forcibly displace the Palestinians of Gaza from the Palestinian territories after pushing them close to the Egyptian border using 70,000 tons of explosives that it has received from some of the countries that support it. The Council of the League of Arab States has called on the UN Security Council to adopt without delay a binding resolution against the Zionist regime in order to put an end to its genocidal aggression that has been underway for 5 months. The details with Said Bouazi.
In a statement carried today by the Wafa news agency, the Council of the Arab Council also urged the Security Council to compel the Zionist occupier to halt its forcible evacuation of Palestinians and to authorize the delivery of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. It reaffirmed its support for the peace plan presented by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in his speeches to the UN Security Council and the United Nations General Assembly, including the content of his address to the 78th session of the General Assembly. Condemning in the same context the policies, practices, and declarations of Zionist officials extolling and inciting violence, the Council of the Arab League urged the International Criminal Court ICC to complete the criminal investigation into the war crimes and crimes against humanity by the Zionists, condemning in the same context the policies, practices, and declarations of Zionist officials extolling and inciting violence. The Council of the Arab League urged the International Criminal Court to complete the criminal investigation into the war crimes and crimes against humanity the Zionist entity has committed and is still committing against the defenseless Palestinian people. Lastly, it expressed its categorical rejection of all the Zionist entity's plans to separate Gaza from Palestinian land, condemning the systematic campaigns against the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNRWA.
The Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghait, has said that it is shameful for humanity to stand idly by the face of the genocide suffered by the population of the Gaza Strip. In a speech delivered at the League's meeting of foreign affairs ministers and relayed by local media, Abul Ghait declared that what is happening in Gaza is disgrace to all humanity, which is standing idly by while Palestinians are being killed by starvation and bombardments, underlining that the people of Gaza are being subjected to a genocidal war with the aim of forcing them to leave the Strip. An informal meeting was held at the UN headquarters by Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, Ambassador Ammar bin Jama, and members of Palestinian families who have suffered from the atrocities committed by the occupying forces in Gaza. The meeting, which was attended by representatives of all the members of the Council, was an opportunity for the participating families to share the painful experiences of the horrific events that have taken place since the 7th of October. In a press briefing, permanent observer of the State of Palestine to the United Nations, Ambassador Riyad Mansour introduced Dr. Imad At-Tamimi, who spent 13 days working at the European hospital in Gaza, who told reporters about his experience there.
We as a group, we treated more than 200 patients. Myself, I treated 16 surgeries. It's not the surgeries you've done, it's the amount of displaced people and the active refugee camp that I lived in. People live in the tents, live in the floor, live in the wards in more unhygienic way, below optimum level of medical treatments. I'm not here to talk about the loss as much as my other colleagues here that could talk about this. I saw it daily. I lived it daily. It touched me so much psychologically and humanistically. But all what I want to say finally here, so they could come in here, it's tragic. I've been in different missions. This was the most terrible and horrific that I've seen in my life. And I bleed the humanity of each one of us to do something to stop this. You guys heard it in TVs and everything, but honestly, we lived every single day for 13 days in Gaza, and it wasn't easy. You saw all what you're going to hear this. I saw it in my eyes, and I've treated patients, and I cried every single day. And thank God that I came back here to at least be their voice, not my voice, their voice.
Dr. Rula Al-Farah also spoke to reporters. She said that she lost about 150 extended family members in Gaza.
My name is Dr. Rula Al-Farah. I'm a Palestinian-American physician from Houston, Texas. My father was born in Khan Yunis and my mother in the city of Gaza. The Al-Farah family is one of the largest families in Khan Yunis with over 12,000 family members, and we have been living in Gaza for centuries. Since the 7th of October, my family members, over 150 of them, have been murdered by Israel's brutal assault on Gaza, either by Israeli bombardment, snipers, or the cruel and ruthless denial of humanitarian aid, with no access to clean water, with food, equitable healthcare services. Thousands more have been tormented with horrific injuries, forced starvation, trauma and displacement to evacuation camps, and catastrophic living conditions.
Dr. Al-Farah also called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire.
2 weeks ago, in the United Nations, there was a critical opportunity to call for a ceasefire that could have saved the lives. This week alone, we've lost 20 family members to the brutal murder of this brutal assault from Israel. So we ask, every single minute counts. Every single minute signifies the death and destruction and agony of our people. We ask for a permanent ceasefire and a permanent solution to the people of Palestine so that we may preserve our dignity and be ensured our rights to self-discrimination, freedom, and justice. Today, none of us are here for condolences. We're not here for apologies. We're here for immediate action. We have demonstrated that every minute signifies the loss of a life, the starvation of a child, and so we need an immediate and permanent, not temporary, permanent ceasefire now.
China has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, describing as a shame for civilization the Zionist aggression against the defenseless population of the Palestinian enclave, Said Bouazi reports.
The fact that today, in the 21st century, this humanitarian catastrophe cannot be stopped is a human tragedy, and more than that, it is a disgrace to civilization, said Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at a press conference in Beijing. Reiterating his country's support for full membership of the State of Palestine in the United Nations, the head of the Chinese diplomacy also called for an immediate ceasefire in the Palestinian enclave and for the unimpeded flow of international aid to the people of the Gaza Strip. On Wednesday, China's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Jing Shuang, said that his country would continue to support the work of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, in the Gaza Strip, which has been subjected to genocidal attacks by the Zionist occupying forces for the past 5 months. Jing Shuang told the United Nations General Assembly briefing on UNRWA that China will continue to work with the international community to support the work of UNRWA and other humanitarian agencies in Gaza and to make tireless efforts to bring an end to the hostilities in Gaza, alleviate the humanitarian crisis, implement the two-state solution and achieve lasting peace and stability in the Middle East.
As you followed in our top stories today in a message addressed on the celebration of Women's International Day, coinciding with the 8th of March, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, called for being proud of our sisters and daughters who proved to be the heirs of Jamila Abu Basha, Jamila Abu Hirid and Jamila Abu Azza. Today's program is to pay tribute to these 3 women, Algerian women who fought for Algeria's independence from the then brutal French occupier.